And hello and welcome to another episode of Startup Caps, your eye on startup capital movements in Africa, with myself, Tanya Habimano. Now this week, we're diving into the world of big data and analytics, a rapidly growing sector that has seen substantial investments, an industry driven with an estimated annual growth rate of 28%, fueled by increasing adoption of big data solutions across various sectors, from financial services to public services, as businesses and governments harness the power of data to drive efficiency and innovation. Now, to give us specifics about the size of this industry, the market, and of course insights into its capital movement is Okemdi Shuku, engagement lead at Brighter Bridges. So I want to start off by getting an understanding of the definition of big data, because in the world of AI, knowledge economy, and insights, data can mean anything. So when we're talking about big data and analytics as a sector for investments, what are we really talking about?
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Thank you for bringing me in. When we look at big data and analytics as a sector, it's generally aggregating, I guess it's in the name, similar to other sectors, but large swaths of data and utilizing that for a specific purpose, whether that be consumer metrics, understanding how people are interacting with specific parts of movements, or even kind of from a financial point of view as well, alongside a number of other kind of more minute things. It's utilizing those large amounts of quantitative data that we get from particular parts of society, and then utilizing that for a specific purpose, whether it be for a growing fintech or an intelligence platform that people can plug into and utilize to understand how people process particular things. People tend to use it from a consumer standpoint quite a lot, obviously, because it helps them move and utilize their business and anchor their business in the right way.
So this is predominantly a B2B play, as I'm understanding it. What are some of the trends, and also just generally the market size of big data and analytics when it comes to the African market?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So what we've seen kind of over the past 5 years is increased adoption of big data and analytics, particularly from an investment standpoint and from a startup or ecosystem history standpoint. And by that, I mean kind of startups getting involved in it, all of those different things. So we've seen an increase in adoption of AI and machine learning, obviously with things like ChatGPT and all the other AI tools that are coming out. It's of increased or imperative value for Africa to get up and meet those particular standards, even with where we are at the moment from an infrastructure standpoint. So we're seeing a lot of AI or ML integration into particular corporates, and there are investors kind of asking these questions as to how these integrations are going to take place, particularly in tech-enabled startups. We're seeing a growth in data-driven decision-making and understanding kind of government initiatives and how governments and policy can obviously help with the adoption of data analytics, but also while protecting the general populace with their data, obviously. And an expansion of internet and mobile connectivity. I think over the next, or from 2020 to 2025, they're expecting internet penetration to increase from about 30% all the way up to about 44 or 48%.
And are there any geographies that have attracted more capital than others and are doing particularly well when we're looking at the continent?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of a similar story to other sectors. So your Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, the areas that obviously have large amounts of people tend to find ways to utilize that data to find particular solutions to help them enable that particular populace to get onto their B2B platform, or to help them understand which data or metrics are important for different customers or consumers to understand.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as the biggest risks to this sector?
I think it's probably protection. I think similar to Europe and how Europe has tried for years to get its data policy protection right. And we've seen obviously different policies being implemented. There are a number of different African governments trying. Rwanda has its own policies that has brought to the fore. Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya are kind of leading the way in trying to make sure that their general populace and data security is up to speed. Nigeria recently signed an agreement with Flutterwave to understand cybersecurity and how to integrate that properly into government. So it would probably be data security when it comes to probably one of the biggest risks, as well as general infrastructure. I think we spoke before about the infrastructure in particular African countries and how it can cope with growing populations, electricity needs, etc. If we're going to have more data centers and cloud services housed in Africa, then the infrastructure needs to come along with that as well.
Okay. And I mean, this is quite an insightful conversation, and I do get a sense of optimism towards the sector, and I think that your AI agreed as well with the thumbs up that came on just a moment ago. But if you had to say, what would you be most bullish about? Where do you see the biggest opportunity within this sector?
Yeah, I think so. There's a saying that during the gold rush, the people that made the most money weren't necessarily the people that found the gold. It was the people that made the pickaxes. So I think if we enable our populations to be trained, companies like Andela, and really try and sponsor and help those kind of companies that are training people in skill sets that afford them the ability to work in these industries, I think that's where we'll see the most amount of growth and impact for Africa, and enabling our populace to be able to work on an international stage, be software developers, be product managers, etc., and really be able to position themselves in high levels of power across different international entities. So that's probably what I'm most bullish about when it comes to this sector in particular.
Fantastic. Lots and lots of opportunities. Okemdi, thank you so much for joining us today. That was Okemdi Shuku, Engagement Lead at Brighter Bridges. And now that we know a little bit more about big data and analytics in Africa, let's speak to the guys plugging the money into this data world. We have Basim Haider, founder and CEO of Optasia, and Kit Van Zyl, partner and co-founder at Knife Capital. Now, I want to start off with you, Basim. I want to get your insights into why big data and analytics. What is it that you see as an investor?
I mean, basically, when we're talking about emerging markets and Africa in general, one of the key challenges and key issues is the fact that there's actually no other easy data. There's a huge dearth of data to enable us actually to even put people on the financial systems, advertising, insurance, etc. So what has happened is from our perspective, we've tried to look for very creative ways to mine data from telcos and financial institutions, which is very staggered, unorganized data, and make sense out of it, and then apply all those applications in terms of money lending, airtime lending, advertising, insurance services, and so on. So basically, we've been able to create like credit scores from data that is otherwise just there. And this is what creates a huge opportunity for us in Africa, Middle East, Asia.
And Kit, bringing you in, because Basim's talking about a very specific type of data. We're talking about financial data, consumer data. When you look at big data and analytics, where do you see the biggest opportunities for you? And is there always an end game? Is it data for something?
Yeah, data is an enabler. We're living in the knowledge economy. So as a venture capitalist, we look at opportunities of companies can really grow and scale significantly. Africa is a little bit, I wouldn't say overlooked, but it's very difficult to get multiples of data for certain things. And this goes, cross industry, health, insurance has been mentioned, but specifically education and also process analytics. Some of our portfolio companies really help with the efficiency of huge data points for big companies to make sure that they reduce scrap. For instance, we also have investments in the space industry where, satellites, they have to kind of monitor Earth for things like agriculture and so forth. So yeah, there's many applications, but as an investor, you look at the principles of how that can scale and how that can be used for an end game to be sold.
Basim, bringing you in here because we're talking about tremendous amounts of data, which is expensive to collect, and I think that's why a lot of nations on the continent have kind of lagged behind the data game, simply because it's an expensive exercise. From the investor perspective, do you look at these investments differently in terms of what returns you could possibly make?
To be honest, I don't think they are as expensive as the assumptions are. I think the biggest hurdles really that are being faced is the privacy and regulatory environment that is a big hindrance, and regulators are unable to understand the speed at which data collection is happening in the world, and there's still a lot of restrictions. There's tons of applications that can go on these data analytics that we collect. So, for example, we own a medical cannabis business in South Africa, and we collect a lot of data on strains and how they help epilepsy and other diseases. The problem is we're not able to do much with that data yet because the environment is still not ripe for us to do clinical trials to be able to change people's lives, eliminate pain, make their lives a lot better. So the data collection, I wouldn't say is the expense or the investment part is not it. It's where do you invest your money, your time, your effort, and try and get the regulators to actually, work with you to ensure that you can have the right applications for those data.
And Kit, do you find the regulatory environment conducive for data businesses?
Not really, to be honest. I think a lot of the countries in Africa still sort of are really a bit stuck in the industrial economy when it comes to intellectual property laws, sharing of information. And as I mentioned, we are in the knowledge economy, which basically data spans cross-border. It's very difficult to contain it. You can't exactly, drill a hole in the ground or build a factory or something like that. Instantly, some of our startups go into multiple countries with their products from word go. So yeah, we are playing a little bit of catch up. It's not all bad news, but it is a little bit difficult when it comes specifically around, it has been mentioned, access to information, privacy, who owns it, where does the intellectual property reside? And that becomes very important as an investor later on, to be able to make that company or investment into a product or something that is, regulated somewhere. And therefore, a lot of the African startups, tend to have international holding companies and so forth to make sure that, they stay true to the law.
Yeah, and I guess the other question is regarding scalability. Basim, I mean, Kate mentioned it earlier, but Basim, how do you view scalability when we're looking at a market that is largely fragmented, when we're looking at data with different regulatory environments? How is that approached?
I mean, we look at it very practically, actually, because data has only one language, and that's zeros and ones. That's the only thing you need to think of. When it comes to, obviously, the different environments, some countries are still way, 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 way behind on the integration of data into their economies, and the ability of companies like us that look at data in a very different way to make them understand. We're trying to make them understand, look, data is critical. If you ease some of these laws or you allow data collection, even anonymous data collection, it's actually going to help not only us as investors, but it's actually going to help the people on the streets daily. Take an example, in a very simple example you could use. A woman in Bangladesh, which lives in a village 150 kilometers away, to apply for a $100 loan, for example, she needs to collect a huge amount of data, guarantors, etc., to come in, and still there's not enough data, whereby we could mine data from telco usage or even simple behavior analysis, which could be collected from browsing data, things like this, that could enable her not to move from her village, get a loan of $100 and so on. But yet the governments there say, no, you can't do this because of data, because of this, because of that. So there's still a lot of, hurdles, but data is the new gold, realistically. That's what it is. And I think governments need to start understanding this, so we can then, put all these applications on top of this data that we collect.
Data is a new gold. I like that. And I'm going to continue with that, because with gold and mining gold, there was a requirement for infrastructure. When we're talking about the knowledge economy, what does infrastructure look like? And is there enough being invested to build an environment that would allow for more data and analytics companies to thrive? And my question is to you, kids.
Yeah, well, if we use that analogy, in a gold rush, don't be the one to dig for gold, be the one to sell the shovels. So I think that's where the investment infrastructure becomes important. No, we don't have enough infrastructure yet for connectivity cross different countries. There's sometimes, yeah. So I think that is something which is still going to remain a huge opportunity, but that is quite big investments, and becomes very strategic for governments to do. Think of education, where education will go. A lot of our portfolio companies in our venture capital investments are involved in the edtech space. Now, you don't have to think about, you don't have to be rocket scientists to figure out you've got this massive continent, Africa, different languages, different structures. You have a huge tech-savvy upcoming population, and you have an education crisis, so, you can have a one-to-many model. If you could have one teacher with some mentors in the classrooms, you could basically scale that opportunity. Same with healthcare. We sort of know where the hotspots are, where the problems are, but we don't really know how to get access to health, specifically to women across, different countries. But if we have the data to know which pandemics are starting where, or which, is it cholera, is it AIDS, is it TB, and also do it in a safe and secure and way to, so all of that needs information. So, but back to your question on infrastructure, the more infrastructure we have to be able to make sure everyone is connected to this knowledge economy, the more one can kind of use that as the rails for access to products and services.
Absolutely. Lots to do and lots of opportunities. Thank you very much to the both of you. That was Basim Haider, founder and CEO of Optasia, and Kit Van Zyl, partner and co-founder at Knife Capital. And now let's speak to the founders on the ground. We have Gijs Kappers, CEO at Data Profit, and Fleur Haynes, co-founder and CEO at Proof. Now, I want to start off by actually just getting an understanding of the two of your companies. What's interesting with data and analytics is that it can be applied to literally anything. And the two of you have very different businesses, with Proof being more on the ESG and sustainability side, and Data Profit looking into manufacturing. So Fleur, I want to start with you. In one sentence, describe what Proof is all about.
Yeah, so Proof is an impact and ESG data intelligence platform where we work with what we call small to medium businesses and fund managers to really identify what environmental and social KPIs are going to drive the success of that company, and therefore the fund manager that's invested in them.
Okay, brilliant. Now, bringing the same question to you, Gijs. In one sentence, what is Data Profit all about?
The Data Profit takes data from manufacturing floors. It takes that data, puts it into a machine learning algorithm. It instructs the manufacturer on how they can improve their operational processes, which in turn leads to a reduction in scrap, a reduction in energy, and ultimately leads to ESG, or a sustainable planet.
Now, what I find quite interesting with both of your companies is that there's the underlying, or not even underlying, there's the element of improving efficiency in both of your businesses, that the data gathered is really to make things better. I'm quite curious, Fleur, when starting the business, was this something that you had in mind?
Yeah, that was entirely the North Star from the beginning. So as some of you guys know, I was also the co-founder of Easy Equities, Easy Properties, et cetera, where we use the advent of the internet to make financial trading more efficient, so you can get more access to people of global markets. Now, over the last 15 years, what we have seen, and my husband and I have seeded several funds, the largest one being a UK fund called Osmosis Investments, where companies that manage their resources well, and osmosis looks predominantly at natural resources, water, waste, and energy, they outperform. They outperform the stock market. Now, that's all fine and well in public markets because all the data is available. Like every single publicly listed company in South Africa and Asia and Europe has to disclose on their water, waste, energy, etc. But private companies do not have to make such disclosures. Yet 95% of the world is investing in private markets, infrastructure, real estate, venture capital, private equity. Where are they going to be able to find those impact indicators that are actually going to lead them to those future-proof businesses? That was the original intent of Proof, was to make that visible and also easily accessible.
Yeah, and Gijs, bringing you into this, the element of efficiency and improving productivity. The manufacturing sector is an interesting choice because particularly when we're looking at the African continent, this is a sector that has struggled in many countries, and we're seeing a global shift towards offshoring a lot of those capabilities to cheaper locations. Why did you feel a need to go into this sector?
So if we take a look at manufacturing, I mean, it is a noble profession. You know, it's if you look at what people use to build cars with, or the consumer products that we use today, it's going to be there forever. But the reality is that manufacturing hasn't really kept up with a digitalization strategy or a digital transformation strategy. Globally, 40% of manufacturers are undergoing digital transformation, which leaves 60% that aren't doing it. So it means that the 40% that are doing it are going to price the others to zero. Where artificial intelligence comes in is the augmentation of artificial intelligence, enabling people on the shop floor to perform better, to improve efficiency. You reduce unit cost economics for the products that you make, but because you're producing less scrap, you're using less energy, and all of those factors have a tremendous return on investment for the manufacturer. But to Floor's point about ESG, while not legislated yet, organizations have to look to ESG targets. And if you coupling that with Generation Z or Generation Z coming through, they want to be involved in something sustainable and something purposeful. And while we always, decry what Africa is doing, the reality of where the world is going is that even in America, a lot of manufacturers are moving manufacturing back into America. And my sense is that Africa and South Africa specifically are on the cusp of doing great things around the world. I mean, we focus on South African businesses, but we are a global play. And ostensibly with Data Profit, as in my previous startups, we have amazing talent in this country and on this continent. And from a higher level of abstraction, I want to show the rest of the world what Africa can deliver and what the people in Africa can deliver to make a real difference to businesses around the world.
And that's always a message that we like to hear on this channel. Floor, coming to you, big data and analytics are very much, it's a technology and a digital game, isn't it? And with AI being the newest and the loudest kid on the block, literally every company is talking about how they can integrate generative AI technologies, how they can work better, more effectively, more efficiently. How has this impacted your business?
Yeah, so it was a little bit like the same with the advent of the internet. It was a more efficient way to access, not tens, not hundreds, but millions of people. AI is another tool, as you rightly say. It's not the solution. So embedding AI as a sharper knife, as a more powerful, machine to process and access data faster is, there's no question about that. However, seeing AI as a solution where it's going to come out with, meaningful insights that are actionable and investable, we're not there yet. So we still have to solve for the garbage in, garbage out problem. We still need to make sure that raw data that goes into these AI computation models has been vetted, has been validated. And to some extent, like with anything in AI, you need to prompt it correctly. You need to have some underlying thesis, like what we talked about earlier, like the financial materiality of environmental and social indicators, so that what comes out of it, the analysis, the graph, the report, maybe even the financial instrument, if you're thinking also about adding blockchain and smart contracting, so that they're actually based on a high degree of fidelity and not garbage. And that is something that we at Proof are, very much focused on, is being that source of truth, so that the data that goes into these very, very powerful tools is right to begin with, and that we apply our domain expertise in financial inclusion, in climate transition, in sustainable agriculture to prompt the AI algorithms to work in a direction that we've already seen evidence of that kind of financial materiality.
And that really speaks to kind of like the softer part of business, that your team, the skills that you have at hand. And Gijs, you alluded to it earlier. I'm quite curious how you have found talent availability when it comes to data and analytics here on the continent. Has it been an easy journey?
If you're a purposeful business, it's an easy journey. I mean, we have amazing talent inside Data Profit, guys that have literally put satellites into space, but because they see manufacturing as something amazing to be part of, but also I agree with Fleur in terms of AI. Data Profit is not generative AI, it's prescriptive AI. So it's really enabling people on the shop floor with data for a machine to tell them or to inform them how to perform those processes better, or to change mixed designs or whatever. But it's really augmenting AI into the employee. It's not a purely technological play, it's really a guider. But once those guidance principles have been adopted by the operator or directly into those machines, the output is already demonstrating huge returns on investment. At certain manufacturers around the world, we've reduced waste from 6% to 1.5% and 1.3% on big manufacturing lines. We've increased output potential at significant other German businesses. So there's the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and that's exactly what we're able to demonstrate. My sense is getting talent in South Africa is difficult. Do we have the talent? We absolutely do. My sense is that Generation Z and college grads and university grads want to be part of something that's going to be good for the planet. That they get to learn from. Inside Data Profit, we invite our data scientists to go and walk the shop floor, try and understand what it is that we're trying to influence, rather than just selling pure technology. It's about how we enable people to do their work better. And there's a strong message in that, and a validity for them into doing something special.
Absolutely. Well, a big thank you to the both of you for sharing your insights and letting us have a deeper look into the world of big data and AI. That was Gijs Kappers, CEO at Data Profit, and Fleur Haynes, co-founder and CEO at Proof. Now, this is how we wrap up Startup Caps for this week, but the conversation does not end here. You can find us on social media. You'll find us on X, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, using the hashtag _StartupCaps. And of course, you can find out more about all of the ventures and the people featured on this episode on the website www.startupcaps.io. That's it from me. We'll do it again next week.